Hello everyone and welcome to the first episode of our Lange series. In the previous episode we discussed the A Lange Söhne from 1994 to 1999 by examining the collections introduced within the period and finished with an in-depth walkthrough of the Tourbograph. In this episode we are going to discuss a few noteworthy special editions such as A Lange Moonface, Langematik Anniversary, Tourbillon and just a couple of others. And further we are going to discuss the acquisition of LMH by Richemont, the importance of Blumlein and management change, the first perpetual calendar of the brand, Langematik Perpetual, the introduction and the importance of the double split, the introduction of the 1815 chronograph and the Tourbograph. So let's go. First one we are going to have a look is the A Lange Moonface. A Lange was one of the two sons of Ferdinand Adolf Lange who took over the brand with his brother Richard. He was the one to carry the brand to international arena with expansion into complicated watches, tourbillons and watches for emperors. 1999 was his 150th birthday and A Lange Söhne celebrated it very much in style. A delightful, romantic and playful rarity among extremely engineered, dense pieces from A Lange Söhne, limited to 150 pieces in platinum and 250 in pink gold, a whimsical jewel so to speak, possibly the most romantic product of German engineering from Glasgow. Its size matches the 1815 pieces at its time, measuring at 35.9 millimeters. Its dial, however, is something entirely different and something we never saw again. It is as playful and captivating with nifty details that you can't see in any other A Lange Söhne watch. 7 gold appliques serve as the Big Dipper of the Ursa Major constellation and the round appliques around as the other stars. The 6, 3 and 9 are represented as beautiful stars covering the Big Dipper and the stunning solid gold moonface disc. Although a small and under-the-radar piece, A Lange Moonface's quirky details with incredible attention to detail attract many curious eyes around. With the lowered subdials, it strongly bases itself on the 1815 up and down introduced in 1997, which incidentally uses the same movement base. On the back, the A Lange Moonface carries the brilliant 1815 movement. The finish is exceptional as expected from A Lange Söhne. Please note that this was a $13,000 watch back in 1999 and just evaluate the quality accordingly. The superb striping, gold chatons, hand-engraved balance cock and the delightful color harmony is something to behold. The depth of the stripe combined with the German silver's warm hue reveals an incredible beauty. And when such beauty blends with its character, it becomes bigger than the sum of its parts, as it happened here. Just a beautiful watch. The year later, we witnessed another anniversary piece. In 2000, A Lange Söhne's annual production was already into 4,000 pieces, and with the blink of an eye, it was already the 10th year of the brand. It was the birth of the Langematik Anniversary, a watch far from being ordinary. The first A Lange Söhne watch graced with an enamel dial. It was inspired from the pocket watch era of A Lange Söhne. Surely there are perhaps tens of watches that use the same design template from various brands and makers, yet this one wins with subtle details. Everything on this watch is just right. The harmony between the two-step white enamel, blued steel hands and the stunning red 12 is impeccable. Such splash of color is a rare sight at A Lange Söhne, something I wish to see more, and here it is just excellent. The diamond-shaped markers on each 15 minutes delightfully fills the space and greatly fit to the slender Roman numerals. On the back, we are greeted with the finest automatic caliber of Lange, the Saxomat. Everything about this watch just exudes class, and even though it is limited to 500 pieces, it is rare to encounter as the owners simply don't let them go. The same year, A Lange Söhne also launched the Lange Tourbillon to celebrate the 100th-year anniversary of the famous Centennial Tourbillon, launched in 1900. It was introduced in platinum and pink gold with limitations 150 and 250 pieces respectively. The Lange Tourbillon represents the biggest departure from the original Lange design. We see the overlapping small seconds and the eye-catching black polished tourbillon bridge traveling through the bottom part of the dial. It might be adventurous and perhaps too exotic for a Lange devotee, yet this is an important watch on its own. It is edgy, interesting, and unique in its execution. Now, whether this means beautiful or not, for me, I prefer the original one. However, the craft here and its daring spirit is unquestionable, truly reflecting early A Lange Söhne. While these were happening on the watchmaking side, another very important development was taking place on the business front. Richemont was quickly expanding into luxury market with names like Cartier and Dunhill. In 1996, the company acquired Vacheron Constantin and the following year Panerai. The biggest one, however, came in the year 2000. Over the 3 years to 31st December 1999, LMH owned, Blümlein guided IWC, Jägerlich Ultra and A Lange Söhne posted a combined sales growth at an annual rate of 19%. On the first half of the year 2000, the growth jumped to 25%. The success was eye-catching. Richemont did not turn its eyes on it, and the acquisition was completed on 21st July 2000, while Mr. Rupert noting the following. One of the main reasons for the fierce competition for LMH was the quality of its management. Mr. Blümlein leads a team of true professionals with many years of experience and institutional knowledge. They have been very successful, and we are excited to have them join Richemont. Now, as I was told by a long-time employee and a friend of Günther Blümlein, actually Mr. Blümlein himself was one of the main reasons for such acquisition and price, as Richemont wanted to have him leading all of its watchmaking division. Following the acquisition, however, a true leader, a visionary, an entrepreneur, and a giant of the watchmaking industry, Günther Blümlein passed away on 1st of October 2001. Just to remark his importance to A Lange Söhne, I quote from Walter Lange. Without Günther Blümlein, A Lange Söhne would no longer exist, and Glashütte would not again be the center of German precision watchmaking today. Fortunately, as with every great leader, his ideas, his vision continue to live. And from his sketches, we continue to see exceptional watches crafted by A Lange Söhne for years, and actually, we still do. One immediate example is Langematik Perpetual, which was introduced shortly before his passing. The first perpetual calendar with the big date indication, Langematik Perpetual clearly showcases the German roots of the bronze design. The Bauhaus philosophy is in complete effect, namely the hierarchy of information. See, the date is the most important piece of information that a perpetual calendar delivers, hence it takes the top spot. The rest is divided between subdials, a brilliant and a fresh look to a centuries-old complication in a 38.5mm package. Just a fantastic piece. On the back, it is powered by the Saxomat, of course, as only such a beautiful movement could complete this delightful piece. From here on, the following years, in my opinion, brought the most fun pieces of A Lange Söhne with what I would call experimental watches. This was A Lange Söhne that did not fear of going outside of the box, not only in mechanics, but also in design. I'd like to briefly go over these special editions, and one immediate example is the Grand Lange Luna Minde set from 2003. Until 2003, the biggest watch in A Lange Söhne's catalog was the Chronograph at 39mm. However, the 40+mm watch market was becoming too big to ignore. In 2003, Lange put on some mass and grew to 41.9mm from the previous 38.5. Thus arrived the Grand Lange one with two-tone dials in various metals. Funniest thing is, the new series was violating two codes of the brand simultaneously, using a movement that is not befitting to the case and overlapping subdials for the Lange 1. The 2003 Grand Lange 1 collection, in my opinion, houses some of the most, awkward A Lange Söhne watches ever made. But hey, we know many awkward watches to become collectible simply because they were ahead of their times. And they were produced in very low numbers due to the lack of demand, so who knows? On the bright side, the 2003 Grand Lange 1 collection gave birth to a stunning special edition set, the Luna Mundi collection. The set was introduced as 101 pieces to be sold as couples. Just look at the details. The overlapping subdials are beautifully balanced this time and filled with angled moon phase indications. The big subdial is covered with constellations. This is a watch that symbolizes the brand's experimenting spirit, therefore a watch that I deem to be very important. Other noteworthy pieces from the era were Langematik Anniversary and, of course, the Richard Lange collection. The Anniversary was crafted in celebration of the long-standing partnership between Vempey and A Lange Söhne. The inspiration came from the marine chronometers from Glashütte, which is why we see many similar pieces also from other brands from the region. On the back, the Gang Reserve is powered by the immaculate Saxomat, which I can say puts the watch above the others. The watch came in a marine chronometer box, a delightful thought that adds more to the specialty of the watch. Richard Lange, on the other hand, joined the stable as a new collection, devoted to precision above all else. As we went through on the episode 1, Richard Lange was a technical guru who vowed his life to the development of watchmaking above all, which led to many important inventions, such as a new alloy for balance springs. In 2006, A Lange Söhne took this spirit and introduced its namesake collection, a simple watch that could attract only the finest connoisseur, showing nothing but the passage of time in the most beautiful way. As a friend puts it, and I quote, "Lange makes some of the most incredible complicated watches in the world. But this particular watch reminds me of the brand heritage. Accurate, sturdy, simple, and elegantly finished. And a watch for every day. Horology doesn't come higher than this model." To make it even better, A Lange Söhne graced Richard Lange with its in-house balance spring. But we are going to talk about the Richard Lange collection in the coming episodes. Now, I think it is time to meet with, to me, one of the most important Lange watches ever made, the mighty double split. This is a chronograph wizardry. Watchmaking is a legacy technology where working with the old methods is still celebrated, right? Even though the technology has enabled many advancements, the basic principles for many applications used in watches today are centuries old, and the mechanics form boundaries. However, within these boundaries, some brands or watchmakers step up and manage to bring something extraordinary, something unseen, like this one. The double split is the world's first double rod-upon chronograph, which means, in addition to the traditional split seconds, it houses a second minute counter and it splits minutes as well. This unprecedented mechanical marvel came from a 15-year-old startup brand and was a clear message on what A Lange Söhne represented. Measuring 33.2 millimeters in diameter and 15.3 millimeters in thickness, it is not a comfortable watch by any means. Not that Lange hasn't tried. The lugs are short, the protruding caseback is deep to keep the watch thin from the sides. Alas, there is no way of reducing the presence of this platinum mass, which I admit is kind of addictive. Just a suggestion, the best way to enjoy this one is to put it on a beautiful deployed clasp that Lange offers with heavy watches like these ones. Design-wise, the double split, rather than being something entirely different, it builds its identity over the original datographs with great success. The big date was replaced by a very useful power reserve indicator at 12 o'clock. The remaining empty area is nicely covered with a gold Roman 12 and balanced with below the center subdials. As with the datograph, the applied Roman numerals create an equilateral triangle forming a focus point. The color harmony conceived by the gold and blued steel hands are just perfect against the deep black background. The hands are also slightly curved rather than just being straight, which undoubtedly would cherish the careful eyes. Flipping the watch over, this is where the double split really astonishes you and justifies its thickness. For me, this is certainly the most aesthetically constructed movement to look at. It is a waltz between the splendidly curved levers, who offer variety of finishing techniques and exemplary craftsmanship. I know that it is an exaggeration if I say this is Michelangelo's David of much movements, but you get the point. As always with me though, let's briefly go over its working principles. The basic principle is the same with the datograph, which you can see here. The question is how the double split utilizes its twin towers to separate not only seconds but also minutes, hence the double split. The bridge at 1 o'clock is for the Rattrapant minutes and the one in the center is for Rattrapant seconds. A standard Rattrapant chronograph has two hands that sit on interlocking shafts. In the case of the double Rattrapant mechanism, this arrangement exists twice, 2 seconds hand and 2 minutes hand. When the Rattrapant pusher is activated while the chronograph is running, the column wheel rotates 1 step. Now the split seconds clamp closes and arrests the Rattrapant center wheel. An arresting spring concurrently seizes and stops the Rattrapant minute counter while the chronograph hand continues to move. When the pusher is pressed again, the Rattrapant clamp opens and the minute arresting spring is pushed aside. Thus, the Rattrapant hand instantly joins the running chronograph hands. Simply put, when you activate the Rattrapant while the chronograph is running, you actually block the Rattrapant gear. Upon release, just like the flyback function, the Rattrapant wheel spins to rejoin the main chronograph hand and sits on top of it. Moreover, apart from the regular split-second chronographs, the double split utilizes a patented isolator mechanism, which removes the friction when the Rattrapant is activated. Apart from its magnificent technicality, of course, what sets this movement apart is its aesthetics. They could have very well designed this movement without curves and angles, but mastery lies here, combining the engineering with beauty. 465 parts to form such a masterpiece. Just brilliant. Of course, it is much easier to say. Adjusting the tolerance between tens of delicate parts is a mind-boggling work. For the complete guide on how the mechanism works, please kindly refer to the link in the description below. Now, the same year when Lange introduced the double split, it was accompanied by its smaller sibling, the beginning of another legacy, the 1815 chronograph. The first pure chronograph from Lange per se, perhaps made for collectors who can't reach out to the ambitiously priced and designed datograph, but not an alternative by any means of definition. It is a watch that stands on its own, just right. Proportioned at a delightful 39mm and a 10.8mm in thickness, the first generation of 1815 chronograph, in my opinion, are among the finest Lange watches ever made. The most outer ring carries the pulsometer and the logo with a beautiful slope. This inclination builds a continuum with the bezel's curves and connects with the main dial. In the main part, along with the signature 1815 collection details, each second is divided into 5 equal parts to match the thick of the chronograph hand second, with M-shaped hash marks. Going a bit deeper, the central portion of the dial is further recessed And finally, the subdials are at the deepest point, giving a slight contrast on white gold model, a reverse panda looks for the pink gold. On the back, it boasts a caliber that we are very much familiar from the Tourbograph. Apart from the stellar craft, the most important thing for me is that this line has a character. You can't confuse the first generation 1815 chronograph with any other high-end chronograph. They are not derivatives. Details are just so coherently brought together, they created an inimitable identity. As a final note, this collection, the first 1815 chronograph, was produced only for 4 years. Last and but certainly not the least, the piece that I'd like to talk about is the brand's first grand complication, one might say, the Tourbograph pour le Mérite, brainchild of Blumlein, and basically the Tourbillon pour le Mérite with a Rattrapant module. It is a monumental watch, combining the fusee and chain transmission with tourbillon escapement and a traditional Rattrapant mechanism. This platinum lump measures at 41.2 mm in diameter and 14.3 mm in thickness, actually somehow agreeable for what it does. Its white dial, combined with its usual 1815 features, an astonishing tourbillon cage, and blued gold colors from the hands, Tourbograph is just irresistible. Including the 636 parts fusee and chain, the Tourbograf's caliber L903.0 consists of more than 1000 parts. Even though it doesn't give the same visual joy as the double split or the Tourbograph gives due to the lack of depth, the acknowledgement and knowing that you hold something so glorious is just a delightful feeling. Just like its predecessor Tourbillon pour le Mérite, the Tourbograph was also first made in the ateliers of Renaud and Papy. What this watch also shows is that by the mid-2000s, in a span of mere 10 years, A Lange Söhne earned the respect and optimism to craft and sell a watch like this one at $390,000 US. This period clearly shows the daring spirit of A Lange Söhne that got the connoisseurs so hooked to the brand. Lange was offering some of the most distinctive, novel, and unprecedented watches. Rightfully, the brand gained a religion-like following among the collectors. Luckily, in the coming years, especially the period from 2008 to 2011, shows that this was just the trailer. A note, for more watches of the period, please kindly refer to the links down in the description below. And as always, thank you very much.